All right, welcome to tonight's event. So today we're going to talk about Git basics, basically some best practices, and at the end we'll do a short little event activity to kind of, walk you through a few things. All right, so basically, let's go. I can share my screen. One second here. There we go. All right, so, whoa, that is not Git. Is it actually a different website? Oh, git-scm.com. They changed it. So if you don't have Git downloaded yet, you can come to this link here. It's git-scm.com, and you can download Git for either Mac or Windows. And I will drop this link in the chat here. I'm guessing most of you probably have that installed. Let me just drop this in the chat. Whoa, sorry for the infinite screen there. Cool. So Git is a obviously the Git free and open source distributed version control system. It is not the only one. There's also SVN. Git just happens to be the most popular one. And pretty much any kind of developer job you might get, you'll probably be learning Git. And it's important, so we can definitely go into some more. So version control helps you manage, track changes, collaborate, and manage software development projects efficiently. And what it does, it provides a history of changes. It kind of enables team collaboration and facilitates the rollback to previous versions if needed. And why might that be important? Any thoughts? You know, what might happen to maybe you need to roll back to like a prior version? So one of the main things that kind of comes to mind is as you're developing on a team, you might have a piece of code that kind of breaks the whole build or breaks the environment, breaks production, and you need a way to kind of get that out of there without and leaving all the other code alone. And so that's kind of like the main thing. It also kind of helps the team see what's been done, who did it, that kind of thing. There's all kinds of extensions on GitHub on VS Code. And today we'll be talking mainly about GitHub. There are other platforms such as uh, Bitbucket, and there's also a few others that are kind of escaping me. Let's see, Bitbucket, GitLab is another one. Yeah, here's GitLab here, and it's nice. It just seems like GitHub is the most popular one, but some companies will have kind of enterprise versions of GitLab, which you may use. So, um, as you kind of get playing around with Git and GitLab, excuse me, definitely play around with this one as well. Cool. And so tonight, let's go to GitHub. All right. So this is kind of like the main landing page, and you know you can see your repos, your projects, code spaces, your organizations. If you're part of any organizations, a lot of like companies will add you to their organization. However, nowadays most organizations will kind of have you create their own separate GitHub account, through the company email. That way you can kind of keep your personal and your company get separate. And your stars, these are things that you find interesting or things you kind of want to bookmark. You can kind of star them, so that's kind of cool. And GitHub does have Copilot, which is kind of cool if you like coding. It's kind of like AI pair programming. It's pretty fun, pretty helpful. So that's something too. Cool. And then also, let's see what else we got here. So some core concepts. So a repository is a project's folder that Git tracks, including all its versions and history. And the working directory is where developers make the modifications and work on the files together. And so basically, once you have something you want to, sorry, I don't have slides. I was gonna make slides and I just kind of ran out of time, so I apologize for the lack of slides. And so basically, what is a like the basic block of Git? So it's called a commit, and we'll talk more about that as we do our example, and we'll talk about what a commit is, some best practices there, and how you might want to, kind of format your commits. Okay, here. And then let me do this. Let me open up a new repo just for like demonstration. So there's a couple ways you can kind of open a new repo. One way is through there's one called git init, and the other way is you can come here and you click on this new button. Sometimes this is just a little bit easier, but sometimes it's easier just do it on the command line. I can show you both ways. And so we'll do GitHub demo. You can call it anything you want. Usually dashes. You can't put any spaces. It'll give you a, you know, an error there. And so description, you can say a Git repo demo for Eventbrite on GitHub, or whatever your repo is going to be about. Cool. And then you can choose public or private. Obviously public, anyone can see it on the internet. Private, only you can choose and see who, the commit history. There are some things that if you make it private, you don't get. I believe one of them is, what is it? Maybe like the projects don't work unless you go like premium. So that's a consideration. But GitHub is free. There is a premium version. I think it's like $8 or $10 a month, but I haven't needed it yet. So, and then here you can initialize this repo with a README file. You can add that. I always do. Add a gig ignore. Probably leave this one out. Typically, you'll kind of generate your own kind of git ignore and add what you need. And you can choose a license, and you can read more about what the different licenses are. I don't want to bore anyone with that today. But we can just do MIT license, sure. And then these are different, apps that can do things with your application. So then you click on Create Repo, and then to actually clone it down, you click on this green code and come down here. There's a couple different ways. You can use SSH, is which I believe I will be doing tonight as long as it's set up correctly. Or you can just come over here and do the HTTPS. And let's see, GitHub CLI. If you have this, you can look into this as well. I haven't done too much with the GitHub CLI, but I do have the GitHub desktop, and I do recommend downloading this if you are newer to GitHub. And let me drop the link here. Basically, it makes doing things a bit easier, a bit more visual, and you'll see that there are some advantages to using desktop. So, Estefano says GitHub pages don't work for private repos, I believe. Yeah, I believe that's right. Kevin says no single point of failure. Yes, that is a great reason for Git. Sorry, I was kind of following the chat. It kind of went over a second. I apologize. So I already have it downloaded. If you want to download it, I will give you a couple minutes, and then we can talk about it. Um, let's see. Does anyone have this downloaded already? Cool. All right. So let's get into the demo. All right. So basically, when you create a folder, there's no right or wrong way to kind of organize your GitHub repos. I like to create folders based upon what they are. If they are, if I'm working on organization and there's 4 or 5 related repos, I might create a folder. For example, there's one for like Rainbow Devs, and then if you go into CD Rainbow Devs, you can see we have the marketing page, the health tracker backend, and the health tracker. So that's one way of organizing. The other ways, if it's just kind of be like one-off things, I just create a GitHub folder and then put everything in there. You can see I have like a bunch of random kind of repos. And once you get done with one, you can delete it from locally. And then if you ever need it again, you can just reclone it. So pretty simple. So I will try SSH, copy this, and come in here, and we'll do git clone, and then paste the repo. Cool, that did work. So I must have my SSH token set up correctly, because if you don't, you will probably get an error. All right, and let me drop the link for this repo if you want to follow along with it. Kevin says, I don't, but will. Yeah, it's definitely helpful, just because, remembering all the commands inside of the CLI can be a little bit daunting at first, so it's definitely a good thing. Okay, so we'll come in here, and now if we CD into it, we'll see if I can find it here. CD GitHub demo. And then if you have the VS Code extension where you can just hit code and then dot, it'll actually bring up the folder that you're working in, and that's quite nice. And inside here, promise I talk about the extensions. So if I type in git, I have where are my installed extensions. You can see there are like a million different things you can do. Git blame is a very cool one. So basically, when you have a repo that is worked by many people, you can actually click on a line and it will tell you who worked on it, and you blame that person if something's wrong or broken. Let's see. And that's the other cool thing is, if I'm working on a project and I'm wondering who made this change, you can literally see that it'll say Michael made this change 2 weeks ago, and here it is. So that's pretty cool. GitHub Copilot I do have installed. It's been working kind of oddly on my machine lately. Hasn't really worked the way it used to. So I'm not sure what's going on there. GitHub theme. This is just a color theme VS Code. I think those are the big ones. But you're basically the ones with more stars. You can click on it and see what it is. So there's that. Cool. So let's add a get ignore. So a get ignore is going to be anything. I believe it's going to be dot get ignore. So basically, anytime you have like a create React app or anything, and you want to like ignore like the known modules, you can do that. Obviously, .env files, you always want to ignore those because you never want to add those into your repo. So if we come in here and we do like a .env, we should be able to see, let's see, password equals 123. So if we come over here, we can see the only thing that we have to commit is this get ignore. But if I come over here and I say, .env, I delete that, it will actually allow me to commit my .env file, which is very bad, just because, API keys and things like that, people can literally go on and steal and, use your account, use your API key. So always oh, that's kind of cool. Where'd that come from? Bower components, home, npm, cache, local. Yeah, that's pretty standard stuff. And I think somebody had an extension or found a website that can create get ignores. That's pretty cool. So if you were the one who did that and you had the link, go and drop that in the chat. I think that's pretty neat. All right, so we have that, and so let's talk about, and here's the other, if you have VS Code, you can also use get source control in here. You will need to log in with your account, but then once you do, you can come up here, type messages, and then commit like that as well. So there's that. Any questions so far? Cool. And let's kind of get into this notion of branching a little bit here. So by default, there are what they call branches. And branches are, you can think of the main being like the main copy, kind of like the thing, like the source of truth, basically, right? And so if I want to come in here and I want to say, yeah, I want to create a new branch or whatever, you could do so use it two ways. One, inside GitHub itself, and B, secondly, using the command line. I'll show you the command line because I do that more often than not. And you can also do it right here, which is pretty cool. Let me come in here. And if you click on add, and you can also clone a repo directly in here as well. But since I already cloned it, we can add existing repo. And we'll come in here, local path. We'll come in here, hit choose. I believe it's going to be under, let's see, GitHub. And then if I can find it. I'm not seeing it. Okay, maybe it's GitHub demo. How did that put inside the GitHub folder? Perhaps I didn't. So we'll go and open that up, and we'll add the repo. And here you can see the same thing that I saw on the other page, where inside VS Code, where it said I need to commit the git ignore, and the equivalent for that on the terminal, you can do git status like this, and it says untracked files. Use git add file to include what will be committed. And so that's kind of the nice thing, is a lot of times Git on the CLI will kind of help you out with commands, and so git add file. So if I want to add this, I can just do git add dot git ignore, and then if you do git status, I can see changes to be committed, new file, git ignore. And so let's go and commit. We'll do it the easy way, and we can talk about the other way as well, but 9 out of 10 times you'll do like a message commit, which is git commit -m, and then you can add your quotes and say adding git ignore. And so if we come here and I do git status again, it says your branch is ahead of origin main by one commit. Use git push to publish your local commits. So I will do git push, and this will actually push my code back to GitHub. Now, what branch was that? I was on the main branch. And so typically we won't be working on the main branch too often. Sometimes if you're working on your own project or your own side project, it's totally fine to be on the main branch for a while. There comes a point where even on your personal projects, you do kind of want to branch off, just because let's say you do have like a deployed site, but then you want to do like a revision. So there'll be times. So if I come in here and I hit refresh, you can see there's my git ignore. So very cool. You are now a Git expert, and yeah, congratulations. That's the end of the. No, I'm kidding. There's definitely much more. All right, so let's move on. So I kind of want to show. Maybe we'll come back to that if we have time at the end. Merge conflicts. This is quite fun. Let's see. So let's say there was someone else kind of adding code to my repo. You could, if you want to pull in the latest changes, you do git fetch dash all, and then you can say git pull main, or git pull origin main. It says up to date, so we are good there. So some best practices. Let's talk about commit messages. So you'll want to talk to your team about what their commit practices are, but in general, it's best to write clear commit messages, explain what they do, And so use descriptive and concise commit messages to communicate changes effectively. So you'll want to do that quite often. Small commits are better than large commits. So let's come in here and say, we have working on the website and we have the header, the footer, the main body. You might not want to commit that all at once. You might kind of commit those in smaller chunks. A good rule of thumb is anytime you see you have, 2, 3, 4 changes here in source control, it's a good reminder that, hey, you might want to make a commit. So another best practice is if you're working on a team to always push your branch up and also commit all your code at the end of the day if you're in a spot where you can do so. Um, just kind of a best practice. That way your teammates can see what you're working on and whatnot. But obviously, if you're not in a spot where you can make a commit without, you know, obviously there's times when you can't do that. So, using feature branches. So, one branching strategy is come in here. We'll say, let's see, I will do this here. Let's see. We're going to create a little story of a example. So come in here and we'll say, what do I want to name this one? So let's say we want to write a story. So we can say feature slash character development, and we can create a branch. And so now if we go here and you want to know what branch you're on, get branch. You can see now you're on feature character development. So if at any time you want to change back to the main branch, let's go make a change here. Let's come down here and let's add a file. We'll call it story.txt. All right, so we got some here, and I will paste this here. Once upon a time in a faraway land, there lived a brave knight named Sir Lancelot. Okay, very cool. Well, let's say, for example, we wanted to go over to the main branch for whatever reason. Somebody say, "Hey, can you check out something on the main branch?" And we go get checkout main. And it's gonna say, "Okay, switch to main branch main." But now you come in here and we have this story text, right? And that may not be wanted. So what you can do, you can kind of go back to your, you can do like git stash, and I believe you can do it on here as well. I thought you could stash your changes, but maybe you can't. Okay, yeah. So if you change your branch on here, it makes it real easy to stash your changes. So if you go to, well, we won't bring it there because that's where it was originally. But then if we switch to main, it'll say you have changes on this branch. What would you like to do with them? You can leave your changes on this, or you can bring a change to the main. So we'll just pick leave my changes on character development. And so basically what that'll do, that will actually stash it for you. That way when you come back to this, it should automatically be there. So view your stash changes. You have one change in progress that you have not yet committed. So you can view it, and there's our story.txt file. And then we just click on restore. Now if you click discard, this probably will go away forever. I don't know if there's a way you can recover it. There probably is, but you always want to click restore if you want to apply your stash. So we will click restore, and there we are, back to be committed. Let's see. Let me see where the chat went here, if I can find it. Where's my chat window? Hang on, my chat was hiding. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. TopTile.com. This is the link that was shared the other day. So create useful dot get ignored files for your project. So let's say you were doing like JavaScript. You come in here. Well, is JavaScript not in there? Java or about React? Okay, there we go, React. And you can literally click on create. And here you go. You get your DS, your .log, logs, backup, node modules. You can see it did not add .env files, so you'll definitely want to add that yourself. And then basically, this is just kind of like credit. Make sure if you can use a tool like this, you always kind of give them credit, just so it's a nice thing to do. Created by TopTal, edit at, so that's kind of cool. Thanks for sharing that, Kevin. Kevin says, I like the source control in UI versus VS Code. It's pretty intuitive. Yeah, I agree. The VS Code is very nice. I think there are some other kind of uh, IDEs that kind of like do that. I think the WebStorm is that it's what's that WebStorm? I can't think of it now, but there's a few others. I think Sublime has their own version control built in, so um, it's not just VS Code. But yeah, I agree. The VS Code one is very nice to work with. I would say just be consistent. If you're gonna start using this, I would keep using this. I wouldn't like switch back and forth all the time between this, the VS Code, and the iTerm. I feel like you might be asking for some sort of error or bug to happen. So I would just say, if you like this, stick with that. You can also, if you click on this more actions, you can see there's commit, changes, pull, branch. So there's a lot of cool things here. Merge branch, rebase branch, rename branch, delete branch, and publish branch. I have found though, the rename branch can be a little tricky. And sometimes you'll rename a branch locally, and then when you push, it doesn't change the branch on GitHub. I don't know why it happens, but you just have to go to GitHub and actually change the branch on the repo itself. You can add co-authors and generate commit message. Don't know what that is, but that seems pretty cool. Cool. Any questions so far? What is a git fetch? Yeah, great question. So let's see. All right, bring up a. So, git fetch is a primary command used to download contents from a remote repository. So basically, it fetches the changes, right? So I think VS Code, it will fetch the changes every 5 minutes automatically, and that way when you get pull, you can just kind of pull the changes. But this will go to the repo, say, are there any new changes that we want to use? And if there's not any changes, you know. And so I always do like git fetch dash all, and this will fetch all the branches basically. And so now we know that, you know, we are going to go with that. Let's see, git fetch command is a crucial feature and similar behavior to git pull. Um, git fetch can be used, consider a safer, not destructive version. Okay, yeah, very cool. Yeah, sometimes I look up the official wording of things just because, hey, great question though. Trying to make fetch happen. That's great. And Estefano says to ignore a file in Git without adding to git ignore, use git info exclude. It works just like git ignore file itself, except it's not tracked in version control. Oh, great tip. Thank you for that. Cool. And so back to our example here. We have this change. Let's go to make a commit. We'll say, let's see here. So we want to be descriptive. So we'll say git commit dash m, and we'll say adding the beginning of the story. And if there was like, let's say there was like a Jira ticket or something like that, we would come in here, we could say like Jira, 2039, and then space or semicolon. But obviously here there's no Jira tickets associated with this, so just adding the beginning of the story will suffice. And we can hit enter, sorry, and that will one file change, two insertions. All right, so that works. Let's do, so what branch are we on now? We're on character development. Um, how do I undo this? Okay, cool. So now let's say we can do a git push, and you'll get it. Sometimes you'll get a message like this. It says the current branch does not have an upstream branch. To push the current branch and set the remote as upstream, git push dash dash set upstream origin feature, and that's usually you can use this 9 out of 10 times, and it'll work just fine. And this will just kind of set the upstream branch, and hit enter. Cool. Now if we go back to GitHub, we'll see that we have this new kind of change request, right? So this is a pull request, and so the base branch, this is what branch do we want to merge things into. So in our case, it's the main branch, and the compare branch is always going to be the branch you're working on, the feature branch, whatever you want to get merged in. And let me bring back the chat in case there are any questions that come up. And then the comments here, usually you'll have kind of a form of how your team kind of says, you know, this code did not break any changes, this code's been tested, this code's been, checked over. But in this case, we don't have one, so we'll just leave a description. We'll just say adding the beginning of the story, because that's basically all it is. It's pretty simple, right? Reviewers, let's say I wanted someone to review this. Specifically, you can go and type in their name, and it will send them an email to, hey, Mike would like you to review this PR. Can you log into it? Assignees, if you are the assignee, I think the assignee would be myself, since I'm the one kind of doing this. Usually this field isn't really filled out too much, but that's fine. Labels, sometimes there'll be labels that your team uses, and I like this label too. Sometimes I'll come in here as a team, you can create a new label, say do not merge, and kind of set this to be like red. So basically, if I don't want someone to merge in my PR and it's not in draft status, you can send that label and hopefully they won't do it. But you could also use a draft. So either way. And let me show you what draft does. And if you come down here, and here's the commits we want to add. One commit, one file, one contributor, and there's our changes. So if we click on create draft pull request, this will kind of change this button, and I'll say, okay, this is what it would look like. Do you want to make this a PR? And if you don't, you can close it out. So there are times when you will create a PR, and so let's say, I don't think this change is really needed, or we're not going to do this anymore. You can just come in here and close it out. Click close. And then at some point, let's say they're like, hey, Michael, can you, that PR where we were going to add the beginning of the story, can you add that back in? You can say, oh yeah, I can do that. Just come in here, reopen it, and there you go. But now it is ready for review. And from here, you'll get your PRs, your code reviews from your peers. And then once you have one or two or three, whatever your team is kind of set up, you can come in here and merge the pull request. I will just merge it since, it's just an example. So click on merge, and then there's squash and merge and rebase and merge. So basically, squash and merge is usually preferred, but there are ways you can set up the repo. That way you can only allow squash and merge. And what this will do is if you create a merge commit, it will actually create a commit that says merged in this branch, right? But if you squash and merge, basically that merge commit won't be added. So It's a team preference. There's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on how people like their Git commit history to look. And today we will squash and merge. Cool. And then the PR has been successfully merged and closed. So once it's been merged in, it'll say this can be safely deleted. And typically it's a good idea to delete old branches because you don't want a bunch of branches on there that aren't being used. So I will just go ahead and delete the branch. Cool. Any questions so far? All right. And then so going back to our example, let's go back to main. And if I do like a git pull, you can see there we go. It will go to pull in our changes there, and you can see story.txt has been added to. And if you come in here, there we are. All right, let's do something a little bit different here. Let's create one more branch. We'll say feature, and every story needs a good plot twist, right? So we'll do plot twist, and we will create the branch. And so right now this branch is not published. Let's say I want to make sure that this is going to work the way I expect things to happen before I want to publish a branch and let anyone else see it. I can just keep this branch locally, and no one will be able to see my work until I click publish. But in this case, I want to be sharing my work. I want visibility for like the managers or anyone else who might be interested in a story. So I will go ahead and just publish a branch. Totally fine. Cool. And so if we come in here and we add to our story.txt, come down here. One day, an unexpected visitor arrived at the kingdom's challenged Sir Lancelot. It turned out to be his long-lost brother, Sir Gawain, if I said that right. And so let's go ahead and commit this, right? So we'll come in here, get commit dash m, and we'll say, oh, I messed up. Okay, get m, and what do we want our commit message to be? We'll say adding a plot twist. Okay, there we go. And then that's fine. But then also, there's times when we realize that we commit and we're like, oh wait, I actually wanted to add a little bit more. And so the question is like, okay, so let's add a little bit more. And so we'll come in here. Let me grab the next file here and come in here. And so now, what should we do? Should we create a new commit, say, adding more details? Anyone have any suggestions of what we might do in this case? I mean, you could. In this case, I'm going to show you how to amend a commit. So basically, sometimes commits that are, much of the same, and you don't want to just keep creating these small commits like adding more details, adding more details. In this case, what you can do what they call amend a commit, and that will actually allow you to go in and actually change the last commit and add more details. So that's pretty useful. Let's talk about how to do that. So you come in here, GitHub Desktop. I don't know if there's a way you can do this or not. Um, you can revert changes commit. Okay, we don't want to revert. We just want to amend it. So instead of creating that new commit, we can do git commit dash dash amend, and this is how you amend a commit. And we can do dash m, and then we can say, well, we'll just say adding plot twist and more details about character. All right, let's go ahead and hit enter. One file change, two insertions. And so now we want to make sure that our commit message is kind of what we, oh wait, did not add, did I forget to add, hang on, I might, let's see, get status. Oh, I did, okay. Okay, so actually we need to git add the story.txt. And now we can go back and commit, and we can just say adding, yeah, we can just amend that commit once more, and there we go. And so now if we do something like called get log dash dash one line, not online, one line. We can see here, adding plot twist and more details about the character. So we could have had 2 or 3 commits there, but instead we only have 1. And this is going to benefit you because the less commits you have, the less you have to worry about as a team. And if you need to revert one commit, you can just kind of, it's just a cleaner Git history, I guess. And that's kind of the advantage of a Git amend. Any questions with amending a commit? Cool. And let's, I'll show you another way to merge in a branch because we already showed how we did it on the GitHub, but let's show you how to do it on the command line as well. So let's come in here, and you'll use this a lot more. Let's say if you're just kind of working on a small kind of repo yourself, you can do it this way. And let's go to git checkout main. And so now we can say we are on the main branch, and the new branch we committed was plot twist. So now instead of doing that whole kind of, if you come here, we can see story.txt is what we originally had. We can come in here, we say git merge feature slash plot twist. I'm glad we got this. We have a merge conflict. Cool stuff. So let's talk about it. It said automatic merge failed, fakes conflicts, and then commit the result. So this is a merge conflict. And we can see here, here's the current change, basically this line and above. And the incoming change is the new stuff. So if I click on accept current change, what do you think is going to happen? Yes. If you guessed that this would go away and it would just keep this, you would be correct. If I clicked on accept incoming change, what do you think would happen? This would go away and you would just end up with this. And that's not what we want. We want to go ahead and accept both changes. That way we get this story and the addition of this story. So we can do that. And then, there we go. And then come in here and let's see. You can add in your merge change there. And then merge branch feature plot twist should be fine. It's going to create the merge commit, but that's totally just fine. Cool. And then if we sync the changes. All right, so now we go back to this branch. Actually, let's go look at it on GitHub again. Cool. And you can see that that branch change, the plot twist, has been merged into the main branch. So that is a way you can merge in branches. And that's I think that's especially helpful. Like let's say you have a feature branch and you want to merge in another feature branch into that feature branch. Using the git merge on the command line can be very beneficial because you don't really want to open up your own PR to your own feature branch. It is kind of counterproductive most times. Let's see. Any questions on git merging? Obviously, there's a lot more to it. It's a very complex topic, and today we are only scratching the surface, but hopefully this can get you guys going in the right direction. Any questions so far? I think I freak out anytime the merge. Yeah, same. Anytime you see that merge conflict, you're like, oh no, not a merge conflict. It is a but you'll definitely get used to it. There is a tool out there. It's called Sublime Merge. Sublime Merge, and I believe it is by same makers of Sublime IDE. This is super helpful. I use this one all the time. It is kind of like a freemium, so I think it's like their text editor. Like you can try it, but once you decide to keep it, they want you to buy it. So, but it's totally worth it and just kind of makes doing the merge conflicts a lot easier. So, sublimemerge.com. Yeah, the pulse definitely goes up every time we see they get merge conflicts. Cool. Let's see. What do we have time for? Let's open up for questions. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to uh, talk about here. Obviously, there's a lot more things you can do. Git is a very complex topic. A great place to learn, I think, is the GitHub documentation. I think they have a decent doc here. So you come in here to docs.github.com and you can learn all about changing a commit message, resolving a merge conflict using the command line, creating and deleting branches within your repo, creating a pull PR. And a lot of this we did cover. So we actually learned most of the basics in about 45 minutes. So pretty cool. Um, GitHub packages. Obviously, there's GitHub Actions. I mean, there's so much to do with GitHub authentication. Um, yeah, there's a lot to know. So I will drop this link in the chat as well. And yeah, there's also things like interactive rebases. I recommend learning how to do that as well. It is quite complex, but once you learn it, it's definitely useful. So maybe we'll have another topic for that. I feel like rebasing and interactive rebases can be a whole session by itself. Cool. Open up any questions. Any questions about Git? Anything you kind of have a hard time with? Things you don't quite understand? Things you want to get better at? And it does take time. Obviously, Git is a very complex kind of thing. It seems simple on the surface, but once you get into it, it does become quite complex. But just more practice with it, and you'll get much better. I think at the beginning, focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on making your commits clear, making your commits often and frequent enough to be beneficial, but then also doing things like amending your commit to add on something or change one line or character. So let's say you commit something and then you realize, oh darn, I misspelled something. Just amend the commit. Don't, you know, do another commit and say fixing typo. I mean, we've all done it. I'm not gonna say I haven't done it, but if you can amend the commit, that's gonna be much more beneficial. So I think focusing on the fundamentals and just practice, and you'll definitely become much more comfortable with Git. Cool. If no questions, I will end this meeting and give you back 7 minutes of your day. Also, I'm not sure how you found this event, but if you are not a part of Rainbow Devs and like to join our group, feel free. Let me drop you the link here. I think some of you are in the group, but some of you might not be. This is our Slack community where we have, I think 98 members now, and we do projects, we do info sessions like this, and also, we just kind of collaborate and as a team and as a community. So we're definitely growing. Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight, and we'll see you next time. And feel free to join the Slack, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.